Ancient Rome is widely remembered as one of the greatest civilizations in history. But what if I told you that behind the majestic temples, legendary legions, and epic victories, there was a world that would look absolutely insane to us today? The Romans used things that a modern person would never dream of finding useful. They put on spectacles so massive that even today's biggest stadiums pale in comparison. And some of their daily habits and beliefs were so bizarre, it's honestly hard to believe they actually happened. But the wildest part? Most of these facts are fully backed up by historians and archaeologists. Today, you're going to discover the most shocking and lesser-known facts about ancient Rome, and they only get crazier with every single story.
When people think of Rome, they usually bring up that famous saying, "All roads lead to Rome." But that's more than just a catchy phrase. The Romans actually built one of the most mind-blowing transportation networks of the ancient world. Stretching for tens of thousands of miles, this massive grid connected Britain, Spain, North Africa, the Balkans, and the Middle East. A lot of people think these roads were just dirt paths beaten down by footsteps. In reality, they were engineered using incredibly advanced technology. First, workers would dig a deep trench. Then, they'd lay down heavy stones, cover them with a layer of gravel and sand, and top it all off with tightly fitted stone slabs. Because of this masterclass in engineering, many sections are still completely intact today. The roads were so smooth and reliable that armies, merchants, and government officials could travel across the empire at breakneck speeds. What's really cool is that they built rest stops and horse-changing stations all along the way. The empire essentially invented an ancient version of the postal service. Messengers could cover massive distances in no time, passing vital updates between provinces. To people back then, this kind of high-speed communication was absolutely mind-boggling. Some historians argue that these roads were the ultimate secret to Rome's success. Without them, managing such a massive territory would have been flat-out impossible. What's even wilder is that many modern European highways follow the exact same routes mapped out by Roman engineers nearly 2,000 years ago. That just shows you how brilliant their planning really was. Even today, archaeologists are still digging up new sections of these ancient roads, buried right under modern cities and the countryside. Every discovery reminds us that Rome wasn't just a nation of warriors and emperors, it was a civilization of world-class builders. And that is exactly why Roman roads are kicking off our list of shocking facts. They prove just how far ahead the Romans were in engineering compared to everyone else at the time.
A lot of modern buildings need constant repairs just a few decades after they're built. Yet some ancient Roman structures have been standing strong for over 2,000 years. One of the main reasons behind this is their famous Roman concrete. For a long time, its exact formula was a total mystery to scientists. The Romans mixed volcanic ash with lime and other natural ingredients, creating a material of insane durability. What's truly wild is that some of their marine structures actually got stronger over time. Contact with salt water triggered chemical reactions that reinforced the concrete structure from within. Modern researchers were completely blown away by this discovery. In many cases, this ancient material proved to be way more durable than its modern counterparts. It's exactly what allowed them to build massive structures like domes, aqueducts, harbors, and huge public buildings. One of the most famous examples is the Pantheon, which still holds the record for the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome. To people in the ancient world, a building like that must have looked like an absolute miracle. Interestingly, this technology was gradually lost after the fall of the Roman Empire. For centuries, builders simply couldn't recreate material of that quality. Only in recent decades have scientists finally started to figure out how it actually worked. Today, engineers are studying these ancient recipes, hoping to develop more eco-friendly and longer-lasting building materials. This just goes to show that technological progress doesn't always move in a straight line. Sometimes ancient civilizations possessed knowledge that ended up forgotten for centuries. And that is exactly why Roman concrete is considered one of the most mind-blowing engineering achievements in human history.
It's hard for a modern person to imagine just how different daily life looked in an ancient city. And one of the most unexpected examples of this has to be their public toilets. They were scattered all across the empire and used by thousands of people every single day. Instead of private stalls, people sat right next to each other on long stone benches with holes cut into them. There were absolutely no dividers. People would casually chat, catch up on the news, or even close business deals right there. To the Romans, this was completely normal. Running water flowed constantly beneath the seats, flushing waste away into the sewers. The system was way more advanced than you'd expect from an ancient society. Some of these toilets were connected to Rome's famous sewage network, which efficiently serviced massive areas of the city. But the wildest part was the sponge on a stick, which was used instead of toilet paper. After using it, they would rinse it in water or a vinegar solution and leave it for the next person. Today, a practice like that sounds absolutely shocking, but to the Romans, it was just a regular part of daily life. Archaeologists still find the remains of these structures across many cities of the former empire. This helps us get a better look at the living conditions of that era. Despite lacking modern sanitary standards, Rome had one of the most advanced public hygiene systems in the ancient world. Even so, many diseases still spread pretty quickly. Ultimately, Roman toilets showcase both a high level of engineering and a completely different take on personal space and hygiene. It's exactly this contrast between familiar technology and bizarre habits that makes this fact so fascinating to us today.
To a modern person, the very idea that urine could have been an important economic commodity sounds absurd. Yet in ancient Rome, it was considered a useful raw material and was widely used in various trades. Special containers were placed on the streets of many cities where residents could dispose of their urine. The contents were then collected and sold to craftsmen. The main reason for its value was ammonia, which forms as urine breaks down. This substance had powerful cleaning properties and was widely used in laundries. Workers known as fullers used urine to remove grease and dirt from clothing. Fabrics were placed in large vats and literally stomped on with bare feet so the solution could penetrate deep into the fibers. Afterward, the clothes were thoroughly rinsed and bleached. Despite the unpleasant smell, the method was considered highly effective. But that wasn't its only use. Urine was also used in leather processing, textile production, and even certain cosmetic treatments. Some sources suggest that people even rinsed their mouths with it to whiten their teeth. Today, that sounds unbelievable, but at the time it was seen as perfectly reasonable. In fact, it was considered so valuable that Emperor Vespasian introduced a tax on urine collection. When his son criticized the decision, the emperor is said to have held a coin up to his face and asked whether it smelled. This story is commonly associated with the famous saying, "Money doesn't stink." This fact shows just how differently the people of Rome viewed the world around them. What modern people see as waste, they saw as a valuable resource, capable of generating income and supporting entire industries. The story of Roman urine reminds us that ideas about value can change dramatically from one era to another. To us, it's a shocking fact. To the Romans, it was simply an ordinary part of everyday urban life and commerce.
Gladiator fights were easily one of the most popular forms of entertainment in the Roman Empire. Massive arenas drew tens of thousands of spectators, all flocking to watch these life-or-death duels. But few people know that to some Romans, gladiators weren't just athletes and fighters. They were also seen as a source of magical power. After particularly brutal matches, people would scramble to get their hands on the blood of fallen warriors. There was a widespread belief that it possessed powerful healing properties. Some believed this blood could fight off severe illnesses, restore vitality, and even cure epilepsy. These ideas grew out of a pure fascination with gladiators. These men put on displays of incredible physical conditioning, endurance, and the ability to survive in the deadliest conditions. Many in the crowd believed that a piece of that strength was locked inside their blood. After the games, enterprising vendors would sell small amounts of blood to eager buyers looking for this unusual remedy. Of course, from a modern medical standpoint, this kind of treatment makes zero scientific sense. But in a world where science was still in its infancy and superstition ran high, practices like this were pretty common. In fact, the belief in the magical properties of human body parts could be found across many ancient cultures. To the Romans, a gladiator's blood symbolized courage, resilience, and pure life force. that's exactly why it was treated as a highly valued commodity. This fact shows just how closely entertainment, religion, medicine, and magical thinking were intertwined in the ancient world. What seems creepy and bizarre to us today looked like a perfectly logical way to fix your health back then. And that is exactly why the story of gladiator blood remains one of the most shocking facts about ancient Rome.
When most people picture gladiator games, they usually think of swordsmen clashing on the sand of an amphitheater. But some Roman spectacles were on a whole different level. Emperors would stage special events, known as naumachia, full-scale mock naval battles. To pull this off, they built massive artificial lakes or completely flooded existing arenas. Engineers had to perform absolute miracles, executing complex plumbing feats to fill the space with water and then drain it rapidly once the show wrapped up. Actual, full-sized warships packed with crews sailed into these flooded arenas. The combatants locked horns right in front of thousands of screaming fans. In some of the biggest shows, the number of fighters reached into the thousands. These spectacles cost an absolute fortune, serving as the ultimate display of the emperor's wealth and power. To the people of Rome, this was a spectacle that blew every other form of entertainment out of the water. Picture a massive crowd watching warships collide, listening to the screams of sailors, catapults launching projectiles, and brutal hand-to-hand combat breaking out right on the decks. According to historical sources, some of these battles used actual prisoners of war who were forced to fight to the death, making the whole show even more brutal, and for the Roman audience, even more thrilling. Today, an event like this would look like an incredibly expensive Hollywood blockbuster, except everything was happening for real. This doesn't just show the Roman obsession with entertainment, it highlights their incredible engineering capabilities. The sheer ability to orchestrate a full-scale naval battle right in the heart of a city blows the minds of modern researchers even today. And that is exactly why naumachia are considered one of the most jaw-dropping, yet lesser-known achievements of the Roman era. Coming in as the darkest fact on our list is the reality that the body parts of fallen gladiators were sometimes turned into a bizarre kind of magical commodity. In the ancient Roman world, superstition was absolutely massive. People completely believed in amulets, curses, omens, and supernatural forces. Against this backdrop, a belief emerged that the remains of famous fighters held a special kind of energy. Many came to believe that possessing a piece of a gladiator could literally transfer their strength, courage, and good luck to the owner. When a particularly famous fighter died, bone fragments, ashes, or other remains were collected for magical rituals and sold as rare talismans. To us, this sounds incredibly twisted, but to many people back then, it felt perfectly natural. Gladiators were viewed as larger-than-life figures who constantly walked the fine line between life and death. Their sheer endurance and ability to survive brutal matchups commanded an almost religious level of awe. Some even believed that just touching something owned by a famous gladiator would pass on their good luck. Combined with the era's deep-rooted magical beliefs, this spawned an entire market for these bizarre relics. Of course, not every Roman was on board with this, but historical records prove that these practices were very real. This fact is especially shocking to us today because it highlights a completely foreign perspective on the human body and death. While we see this as completely taboo, a segment of Roman society viewed it as a source of raw power or a shield against misfortune. And that is exactly why the trade of gladiator remains takes the absolute top spot on our list of the most shocking facts about ancient Rome.